Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to SlamTube. I'm Chriz, aka The Mole, the award-winning Chriz, aka The Mole. Joining me is the non-award-winning James Phoenix. And we're here to discuss Hell in a Cell. Which, obviously, I'm just going to start with the pay-per-view as it was. I'm not going to do the pre-show. Usos versus The New Day was our first match. Which, I'll let you say your thoughts for that.
To be honest, I didn't see most of that match, so you can go ahead.
Hey, and just so people know, I do have my notes on my phone.
He does.
Just because I took notes just so I can remember stuff. I put what worked for the New Day match, and it's only bullet points, so it's not like the whole speech. But what worked for the New Day match, in my opinion, was the New Day got to be crafty and funny by using musical items like trombones and gongs and stuff like that, which is funny. The Usos got to just be downright savage. The commentary was just honed in and just focused on the match. Both teams had great chemistry. More in the middle section, because it depends on what you think, is this guarantees we're going to have another match between the two of them. And I put that in the middle because I know some fans are getting sick of the same match. Personally, I think they have good chemistry, so I'm looking forward to another one. The only negative I had from the match was one bit with Xavier.
Okay.
They're caning the shit out of him. He just goes, no souls it. Which I'm like, come on, if that was Reigns, we'd all be jumping all over this. We have to kind of address that now. Terrible selling in that one part. But he did sell the rest of the stuff afterwards and all the stuff before it when he was being kendo sticked. Like, at one point with the Usos, with the New Day being crafty, they got the kendo sticks and wedged them between the two corners of the cage like that to trap one of the Usos.
Yeah.
But he got free. And then the Usos pulled out handcuffs and did a similar strategy, and it was actually more effective because it just destroyed the shit out the two of them. Big E looked pretty strong in this match. They used him as the powerhouse. We got a cool finish where they placed a chair on Xavier Woods and did a boom, like double oos onto it.
Nice.
And then pinned him. And yeah, the Usos are the new tag team champions, which, yeah, I gave that match a win. I like that match.
Okay.
It worked on every level it needed to. The commentary worked, the match worked, it played their characters, and it fueled their storyline. So that was a good match. Did you see the next match, Jim, of Orton versus Rusev?
I saw most of that match, yes, and that was a pretty standard Orton and Rusev match.
Is there such a thing at this point?
That's true.
Because our first pay-per-view one was 30 seconds and it was over. And then all the other ones have basically been Aiden English interferes, so Rusev can win quickly.
I guess that's true.
But it wasn't like, whoa.
No, not really. It was there.
But I will say, this match, Rusev looked vicious and looked strong. Again, the commentary was focused. Orton looked good. Rusev reversed Orton's taunt into an accolade, which was just a great moment. Orton winning, I put as a negative, as I feel he didn't need the win, but I feel after the 30 seconds and how Rusev's only beat Orton with help, Rusev needed the victory.
Yeah, I did like how Rusev spent a large portion of the match working on Orton's ribs and back so that it would be more effective when he put the accolade in.
Yep. Which I will say, this match, I'd say this match mostly worked. Rusev needed a win, but it mostly worked.
Okay.
And the next one, we have Ty Dillinger versus Baron Corbin versus AJ Styles, which in the pre-show, Daniel Bryan made this a triple threat.
Much to Corey Graves' dismay.
Yep. Which I'll say, plus Corbin looked impressive.
He did.
Negative, should have been a one-on-one. AJ looked good, like that. Yeah. Ty just felt boring.
Yeah.
Like, he has, like, the most generic moveset, and then he just consists of going 10, and that's his whole shtick. Corbin's chokeslam backbreaker was fucking awesome.
It was.
And Ty was only there so AJ wasn't pinned by Corbin.
Yeah. I do like that point where Corbin grabbed AJ by the throat and hurled him from one corner to the other. And I loved how Corey Graves told him, like look at the power of Baron Corbin. That's almost 20 feet from corner to corner, and AJ Styles just got thrown 2/3 of the way in one shot.
Yep. I like that chokeslam backbreaker where AJ jumps onto the rope. He just grabs him and just boom right into the middle of the ring. It looked brutal.
Yeah.
And obviously, for people wondering the ending of the match, Corbin cheated. Well, not cheated, but because it's a triple threat. But he basically capitalized on AJ doing a move and kicks him the fuck out the ring and pins him. And pins Ty Dillinger. So, yay.
Yep.
But yeah, like I said, the match was all out. I'm going to give that a medium because it was hits in part and just negatives on the others, like mix.
Mm-hmm.
And the next match, we have Charlotte versus Natalya.
This was a great match.
Yep. I'll say this match, for me, I thought like Charlotte's flip over the top rope worked. It was more technical than the other matches on the roster and more psychological. Negative was the commentators claiming throughout it a couple of times that Charlotte was the more powerful one.
Mm-hmm.
When Natalya clearly has more muscle and her moves are more power moves. However, Charlotte sold the leg a hell of a lot better than most people do.
Oh, yeah.
That will come back later. I didn't know that when I wrote this in, but that will come back later.
It will.
And yes, and the ending continued the story very well. Where Natalya basically hits her with a chair, gets disqualified. She gets to keep the title. They get to feud it. And yeah, it just worked. Like she just kept beating her with her leg with the chair. And Charlotte sold that leg really well. And the reason I say better than most is she was hopping. She was then doing moves that only required one leg. When she lifted it up a few times, she'd stumble more because it's putting weight on both legs. This type of basic psychology a lot of people don't do with leg injuries. And
she on the multiple occasions that she went for her moonsault, she literally hopped the turnbuckles in one leg.
Yep, which I like that.
Yeah,
I like that match.
Yeah, I really like that match. I love the ring chemistry of Natalya consistently working on the knee and telling that story because you don't see that kind of storytelling in wrestling a lot anymore. The one thing I didn't like was that, okay, the ending makes sense. Okay, Natalya grabs a chair to keep the belt, yada, yada, but I didn't feel like she needed to because given how much she dominated the match, I didn't feel the 5 minutes of Charlotte coming back and hitting a half a dozen moves should have panicked Natalya enough to go for the chair, rather.
I don't think it panicked her because they kept telling the story she was getting frustrated because it wouldn't keep her down.
I guess.
Like she kept going, ugh, when she kept kicking out, she was like, ugh, and you could see the commentators going, oh, her frustration's building. And then it just wouldn't keep Charlotte down. So Natalya just snapped. It was more frustration than it was panic. It's like, no,
Oh, dear. Well, yeah, that's the thing. I felt that Charlotte and Natalya told a great story, and I think it demonstrates both their wrestling heritage that they were able to put on that caliber of a storytelling match, which, as I said before, is not something you see a lot of guys doing nowadays, and that they were able to do it, 90% with tactical wrestling until the chair at the end, staying in the ring and doing what needed to be done, and that really worked well for that match, and I think it really helped that match stand out from the rest, which were a lot of brawl fests and spot fests, but having a technical matchup, I think, gave it a nice refresher. Yeah, I think we might have lost Chris the Mall. Unfortunately, he's recently been having some power issues at his house, so he should be back in a moment. But But that was a really good match between the two of them, and the commentators sold it too, which was great. They were really focused on the match, talking about how the legacy of these two, talking about how the two of them, are, both, how much they want to be women's champion, how much is this queen versus queen thing, how much they've had this feud going. For those that might not be aware, there's actually a couple of records set tonight with this match. Natalya actually became the woman who has wrestled the most WWE pay-per-views in the history of WWE. She beat Trish Stratus's former held record tonight. In addition, Natalya and Charlotte became the first women to compete for 4 different titles, that being the NXT Women's Championship, the Divas Championship, the Raw Women's title, and the SmackDown Women's title. So in addition to just being a great match and having great storytelling, there was actually some historical relevance to the evening's match, and I thought that was pretty cool. And hey, there was Noel.
Hello.
No, I was just telling the people in addition to this being a great match from a storytelling perspective and a technical wrestling perspective, it actually had historical relevance, as I noted online. I noted in an article I read yesterday that with tonight's match, Natalya actually broke Trish Stratus's record for most pay-per-view matches wrestled by a woman in WWE.
Yep, I believe the commentators mentioned that.
Did they? I don't remember them saying that. Fair enough. And also, this is also the two ladies broke the record for most women's championships competed over. These two ladies having competed for the NXT Women's title, the Divas title, the Raw Women's title, and the SmackDown Women's title now. They're the first 2 women who ever competed over 4 different titles.
Yep. Unless you also include anyone who fought China. Because you had China with Intercontinental and Women's, and then you had other ones as well that also had Divas and Women's.
True.
But still, yeah. But yeah, like I said, it was more ruthlessness and frustration than it was panic.
But I think the point they were making was that specifically these 2 women had fought in matches for all those titles together.
Yeah. Oh, had they? I couldn't remember them fighting for the Divas title.
I think they did. I mean, it might not have been just them. It might have been a multi-woman match, but I think they were in the match together.
But yes.
Yeah, so.
We then have Nakamura versus Mahal.
AKA the piss break match.
Which I'll say, that match, the women's match obviously gets a thumbs up for me. This match was a complete dud. The only thing I'll add is it was a slight twist on the typical Mahal ending.
Mm-hmm.
Slight twist, and by slight twist, I mean basically the same, but slightly longer. So, yeah. What did you think?
Yeah, that's about right. It was there. Shinsuke needs a mouthpiece.
He does. And not the one he actually has in his mouth.
No.
And we have Ziggler versus Rude next.
Indeed.
It was a solid match for what they needed it to be.
Yeah.
Dolph's non-entrance was brilliant.
Yeah, Mole called that, by the way.
And a funny roll-up exchange at the end. That was funny. I liked that. And it was a nice ending. Because normally you get the roll-ups, but that was actually a funny roll-up.
Yeah.
Because it was one after the other, after the other, after the other, and they win.
Yeah. And I did like the idea, too, how abrupt they just get going. It's like, glorious zigzag.
Yep. So that'll continue.
Definitely.
Which, as they mentioned, Rude beat Ziggler at his own game.
He did.
But yeah. Then we have the final match.
Yep.
Of Shane versus Owens. Which, I've got to say, yes, Ziggler versus Rude, I gave it a good. I like that match. Solid.
Mm-hmm.
Shane versus Owens. My notes are, Owens was ruthless at the beginning, which was brilliant.
Yep.
This match had the best build-up of any pay-per-view match in a while in WWE.
It really did. There was a great story going into this.
Negative, Shane needs to learn lessons from Charlotte on how to sell a leg. Told you it'd come back. Literally, during the matchup, basically, Owens came off the top rope. Shane held up his knee, hit him, caught him with the knee to reverse the move, and held his knee. Like, took a lot out of Shane. Think he's injured a leg. Within 2 seconds, Shane was jumping around the ring and hopping around and punching him. Just the leg was not an issue after that point. Which is fine because it wasn't a serious injury. But the fact it was like 2 seconds after he was meant to have hurt it, at least sell it for a few minutes.
Yeah, you would think.
But also, Zayn heel turn at the end.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
Which will make Sami Zayn relevant, which is good. It gives him something to do besides just being there for whenever Kevin Owens needs to look vicious. Let's have him beat up Sami Zayn again.
Yeah.
I give that match a good match. I like that match.
Yes, definitely. That was a great match.
Yep. And obviously this match had the spots that people wanted to see. Like, we got 3 tables broken.
Yep.
2 of which were announcers. They went up top, and I felt up top they teased going through it and going off it way too much, and then no one went off it.
Yeah, that was a little disappointing. Although Shane eventually did go off it.
Yeah, but they went off the side, and then Shane had to go back up to go off it.
Mm.
No one went off it during their initial thing. They just went off the side.
Yeah.
It was like, oh. But I will say, I did like the fact Owens got to the top, went to jump, and just went, no. I like that because you always see him just do it fiercely. It was great to see someone actually go, maybe this is a bad idea. Because you see someone go to jump off something in WWE, they just don't hesitate. And the comments are like, oh my God, no hesitation. How did they do this? It's great to see someone actually hesitate.
That was good.
Also, I will say this match, the ending where he pinned Shane McMahon because he managed to crawl under his own strength. Okay, no. Sami Zayn dragged him on top of Shane, yes. 1, 2, 3, and the match was over. Then Shane gets carried off on the stretcher. That's kind of a first.
How so?
Normally in the Hell in a Cell, whenever they get stretchered off, they wait a few minutes, then come back to win the match. This ended with the stretcher scene because they were carrying Shane onto it when Zayn pulled him on and quickly got him to pin him, and then they carried him off. So it ended with that scene.
True.
Which that's good because I always felt one of these. This didn't quite do it, but one of them needs to actually end when they go through the table and the EMT's taken away. Just end that way.
Yeah.
Not because it'd be good for that one particular match, but it'd be good psychologically for the rest of them. Because we got to the point where you see them in a Hell in a Cell be carried off and you're like, they're going to come back.
Yeah.
They always come back. Yep, there they are. Just once, if they did it where they didn't come back straight away, when it happened the next time, your mind would just go, wait, they could actually do this again. Is this over? I'm sorry, I like psychology in matches.
Yeah, psychology is great in matches.
Which is one of the reasons we haven't had a good Raw in a while, because a lot of the stuff in Raw just looks, and definitely NXT, sorry if that annoys people, lacks a lot of the psychology and like why they're doing stuff. A lot of them will be flips for the sake of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, overall, I think this is a solid pay-per-view.
I agree.
It was definitely worth watching it. And I think it's one of those where if you were in the arena, you would have got your money's worth as well.
Oh yeah, I could definitely agree with that.
So I think that's cool. I like that one. I like that Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
I think it did justice. I also like the fact they did something different with this year's Hell in a Cell, which I want to give them credit for.
Okay.
Well, last year's Hell in a Cell, it was the women are having a Hell in a Cell because history, And this title match will happen in Hell in a Cell because it's Hell in a Cell pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
This one, the Usos versus New Day had built and built and built.
Mm-hmm.
So it made logical sense. It was in a Hell in a Cell.
Mm-hmm.
Shane versus Owen, into how long that feud's gone when you trace it all the way back and stuff like that. And you see how bad and hostile it's become. Makes sense for a Hell in a Cell. So the only 2 Hell in a Cell matches on the card this time made sense. For a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Or a Hell in a Cell match, I should say. And not just, it's the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Like, Jinder Mahal versus Nakamura was not in a Hell in a Cell. If it had been on Raw, it probably would have been.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they need to put the title in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, overall, it was a solid pay-per-view.
Yeah. I agree. It was an excellent event. There was a very, as has been the general SmackDown standard of quality since the brand split. Even though they've had a couple of duds here and there, generally their pay-per-views have been very good, and this held up to that. It was very solid. A lot of great matches, great storytelling. Like I said, there a low moment here or there. The Jinder Shinsuke match could have been better, but overall, it was a really enjoyable pay-per-view, and it held energy and attention all the way through.
I will say, SmackDown pay-per-views have been good after the roster split until the Superstar shakeup.
I
thought the Superstar shakeup actually really fucking hurt the shit out of the out of SmackDown.
You think so?
I put it to you, before the split it was more equal. After the split, if we're just going with ex-world champions, SmackDown has, and you can count them, AJ Styles. When he's around, Chris Jericho, Dolph Ziggler, Jinder Mahal, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton. Raw has Big Show, Bray Wyatt, Brock Lesnar, Dean Ambrose, Finn Balor, Jeff Hardy, John Cena, if you include the ECW title, Matt Hardy, The Miz, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Sheamus.
Wow.
Yeah. Plus, if we're including 205 Live as part of Raw, because it normally is, Brian Kendrick held the world title.
Yes.
How messed up is that? It's almost double the amount, because I felt Miz was like the backbone of SmackDown with AJ Styles. With the roster split, they shouldn't have moved those two apart. In fact, those two should become the dominant feud of the brand.
Yeah, that would have made sense.
John Cena, fair enough, he's hardly around, but still, they just put him on Raw to lose to Reigns.
Yep.
When they did the Superstar shake-up, all it did is take everything good from SmackDown, move it over to Raw.
Yeah, Mo makes a valid point. It's really the reason behind that being that SmackDown was at that time for a period of time getting higher ratings than Raw because it had better storylines and a lot of great superstars. And WWE just cannot stand the concept of SmackDown having higher ratings than their flagship Monday Night Raw. It drives them nuts. So they said, well, let's take all the stuff that's making SmackDown ratings and put it on Raw. Misunderstanding the concept that what made SmackDown good was how the guys on SmackDown were used, not that the guys were there. It's how the show was run. The problem with Raw is it's way too much talking and promos and not enough wrestling. And the promos talking that is done is not that good. And that's what really hurt that show. Also, I think Raw is a little bit long. I don't know if it really needs to continue being 3 hours. As much as it's I do enjoy having 3 hours of wrestling. It always feels like the time is not being well used. Like, if they use the time properly, I could see it. Like, they've been using the cruiserweights recently. That's cool. But it just seems like they're not properly using the time. And it feels like they could be better doing that. And if they're not going to better do that, they should just drop it back down to 2 hours so they can have a more succinct show to just have what they need to have to push the main storylines and not a lot of filler that's just, boring and taking up time for the sake of taking up time. Yeah, they really should move some more former world champions back over to SmackDown, because the problem is SmackDown being the land of opportunity is they tried to make that the place where the new guys can be built up, but there's not enough old guys for the new guys to build off of. You're bringing up guys like Bobby Roode and him being at Ziggler, that's great. And bringing in a guy like Shinsuke, that's great. Jinder, not really established enough to get Shinsuke over, and I think that feud's been hurting just by virtue of people are still unsure about Jinder because he was pushed out of nowhere. And he really hasn't shown much of being a legitimate champion outside of the Singh brothers help me retain the belt, which has come up before. It's the same thing they were doing with Seth Rollins with J&J Security years ago. Was, he only won matches because he had help, and I think that's kind of hurt Jinder's credibility as a champion. Welcome back.
Thank you. But yeah, like I said, all they did is take everything good from SmackDown and just move it over to Raw.
Pretty much.
Even Talking Smack, it's now Raw Talk, and they took it away from SmackDown.
Well, they don't even really do, Raw Talk isn't really a regular thing either. It's just that they each have a show they do after pay-per-views now. It's Raw Talk or Talking Smack.
Yeah, it is, but, look at Talking Smack. Like I said, they took it away, then it's only after pay-per-views, and Raw gets it too.
Well, Raw had Raw Talk, it just wasn't as frequent.
Yeah, exactly. But Raw didn't have Raw Talk at the same time. They only gave Raw Talk after SmackDown.
Right.
Had Talking Smack. It was weekly at one point. Then they kind of fizzled it out because people weren't watching it as much. And they just said, fuck it, just pulled the plug on Talking Smack.
The purpose of Talking Smack was that it made up for SmackDown's lack of a third hour.
Yeah. And unfortunately, with the Cruiserweight show, they put it after 205 Live.
Yeah.
It should have been after SmackDown like it originally kept being, because people will tune in.
Yeah.
If you give people an hour to just calm down, they're probably going to off and do other stuff.
What they should do is drop Raw back down to 2 hours, have one segment set aside each Raw for the Cruiserweights to cut promos on each other or advertise what's going to happen on 205, and have 205 happen live after Raw while having the Talking Smack happen after SmackDown.
Yep. But they won't.
No.
But yeah, like I said, the solid pay-per-view.
Yep.
And join us next time for Survivor Series or TLC, one of the two. I think it's TLC.
TLC in 2 weeks' time for SmackDown.
Yeah.
I know Raw.
Yeah, well, because I was going to say, because they kept advertising TLC during the pay-per-view.
Yep.
Only other negative I'll say about this pay-per-view is I mentioned to Jim, I didn't like the advert for the game.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was serious bit where the Usos where the New Day are being helped out the arena. Now here's our video game.
Yeah.
Serious moment. Here's our video game. You're like, stop that. Don't get me wrong, the video game might be good, or it's unlikely. It's unlikely it'll be that good, but the video game may be good, but it's not worth sacrificing intenseness on the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, see us in 2 weeks' time for TLC. Peace.